Welcome back to Nordic Arms and History. In today's video, we're talking about a tunic in my collection, which I find to be very special. And it's actually probably the finest officer's tunic that I have, in fact. This tunic was used by a lieutenant during the war, and whatever happened in Liberation Day, when that came around on May the 8th, a flag was added onto it here. And we've seen a couple of instances of this actually happening, because I don't know exactly why. It's not perfectly studied. And that's something I want to take a look at and maybe share, so we can maybe get some more information about it. And then maybe we can even find out who this is at some point. I do have a label, but the name is so faded that we don't even know. But still, a very cool tunic that I find to be probably one of the nicest in my collection. So yeah, we're going to get up close to this tunic. We're going to take a look at it, see how it looks, just study it a little bit. And we're going to be later on then going over to the different instances of this actually happening. And we can maybe cross-reference some. So yeah, let's begin. This tunic is a model of 1914 for the Norwegian army. Now, as you can see, of course, it's missing a star, but we know it's 2 stars, which after 1930 means lieutenant. However, if it was before 1930, it would have meant premierleutnant, or premier lieutenant, I guess, is probably the best association with that. So yeah, the tunic itself is in pretty good condition. We'll be, of course, taking a closer look here in a moment. But really what makes it special is, of course, the flag that we can see here. Now, as we'll be talking about later, there is several instances of this happening, and we'll be going over that a little bit more over them. But yeah, as you can see, it's a really clean look. Of course, I don't have the belt to tighten in the midsection here, but it is actually quite a nice clean uniform, and I'll be showing you some pictures of that later as well, and probably during the talk here as well. And as you can see, I finally do actually have a way of displaying tunics, because I do actually have a decent collection of them. I'm not a huge collector, but I have a couple, and I'm planning on getting some more. And what's really interesting is, of course, this is a 1914 model, but there was actually a later one of the model of 1934, which was not as widely used, but it's a really clean uniform as well. And the reason why not all the officers went over to it is, of course, supply. And it wasn't fully universally transferred over. Some still had the 1914, some did not. And we actually do know, thanks to a viewer, that at least some that had the 1934 uniform actually used the 1914 coat, as it still worked as well. So yeah, let's get a nice closer look. I'm going to take this down, and we're going to get a nice flat view of this, and we're going to take a look at the inside and share a little bit of the story about it. Let's take a look. Here we are up close to the tunic, and let's take a look at some of the really nice details on the outside of this tunic. Starting with the breast pockets. As you can see here, there's a really nice sort of clean design, as you can see. And when we open it, you can see a really nice internal fabric texture, and it's even pocketed so that the button is not visible on the outside. That is actually something that changed with the 1934 uniform. You can actually see the buttons down the middle as well on the 1934 style. And a really cool thing is, in fact, the buttons on this really tells a cool story. If we take a look here and we zoom in, here you can actually see the stars are actually miscolored, and I believe that tells a really interesting story. Now, as we know, before 1930, the 2 stars here would actually mean primary lieutenant, or premierleutnant. And what we know is after 1930, both the ranks of premierleutnant, which had 2 stars, and sekundärleutnant, which is the lowest rank that had 1 star, were changed. The 1 star after 1930 meant fenrik, which was, of course, the lowest rank. And then the 2 stars were then, of course, turned into lieutenant. It just became a regular lieutenant. It was merged, I believe. They merged the 2 lieutenant ranks into the 2-star version, this one here with the 2 stars, and they were then created a new rank, which was fenrik, which had 1. And what this might actually indicate is this person might have actually had, before 1930, the rank of sekundärleutnant, and then when this whole merger happened, was actually then given the rank of lieutenant. That is, of course, pure speculation, but we don't know, and it actually just tells a really cool story, and it gives me a chance to talk about the rank changes there. And as you can see here, if we get a closer look, you can see the missing star here, and you can actually see that it used to have it here, but it doesn't have it anymore. So I'll be replacing and adding a new one here. Another interesting thing is the wear on the neck here, on the collar here. That can, of course, indicate, he could have had a stubble. You never know. It just tells a really cool story about this tunic. And you can also see the red piping here, which is for the 1914 uniforms. The 1934 actually changed this and had a green piping instead. Here we are. Now we can see the side of the uniform, and you can see again with the collars here, the red piping, which is indicative of the 1914 uniform. And looking at the side pockets here, it's at the same style as the breast pockets, of course, just a lot larger. And a very interesting thing is a label has been removed here. You can see that it's been sort of removed from the inner liner here. And again, same style. It's also been sewn here, probably to keep its shape better and to keep that sort of nice clean line. And this is, of course, on both sides of the uniform. You can see here as well that something has been removed here. A very fascinating part of its history, and we don't know what that might be. And again, here it's been sewn to keep its shape. A very interesting piece of the uniform, and really a mystery to be solved, as someone might call it. Now let's get a closer look at the flag here that's on the side of this. And from all the other pictures I've seen, this one here has a really interesting story, because if you take a closer look here, you'll see it's actually been embroidered or some sort of, it's been handmade. It's not just a cloth that's had the flag added to it. It looks to be handmade and then stitched onto the tunic, And as you can see, in my opinion, it's amazing craftsmanship. You can see here how much time must have gone in to create this and to add this to the tunic. Really interesting, and it's been well done. And in my opinion, it's just a really cool piece of history here. You can get a nice close look here. It's really cool. This is kind of the main reason why I picked this up, is that flag was really a eye-catching piece of the uniform. Here you can see the back of the tunic, and I believe, in fact, just looking at how this is shaped, this might have been a tailored uniform, because when I tighten the front here, you can see it just kind of goes into the shape quite well, and that's really interesting. Of course, that shows, I think most of these officer uniforms were actually tailored, as if, of course, these are an officer's uniform. They would probably want the uniform to be tailored to them, and I think that's quite common. Now let's take a closer look at the inside of the tunic and get a nice close look at the labels, and maybe we can see if we can find out who this is, or maybe get some clues to who this was. Now let's take a look at the inside of this tunic. Now, opening this up, we can see the same sort of style of inner fabric that the pockets had, and we can already see there is a little bit of wear and tear on the sides here, and this is actually on both sides, which is, for me, not an indication of moths, but more of an indication of maybe some sort of equipment has rubbed into the inner liner, wearing it out, basically. Another thing you can see on this is the only thing that's really bad with this condition is it's missing a button here, and this one here is very loose. And I'm not touching that for now, as I'm not going to be using that button. Now let's take a look at the different details that we have on the inside of the uniform itself. Now let's take a look at some of the labels that I found on the uniform here. The first one being the tailor's marking, and as you can see here, this is marked Herman, and it was established in 1903. From what I've found out, this was a tailor and clothing store that ran for quite a while. It was from 1903 to 1940. The tailor itself was actually located in Rosenkrantz Street number 4 in Oslo. The tailor was actually quite well advertised in the different journals and newspapers during the time. Here you can actually see one from 1930 indicating it was able to tailor uniforms and, of course, kepis and hats for the Norwegian army. In the inside pocket of the tunic, we can actually find another tailor's marking where we actually have some writing that we can try and figure out. I've been trying to figure this out for quite a while, and I'm still struggling. And this also has the date, and I think I've been able to lock it down to either in the 30s or the 20s. If you look right here, you can actually see there is a little bit of it could be a little bit of text going over to the 30 or the 20. Now, I think it's safe to say it's either 20 or 30, and the last number being a 0 or a 9. I'm not 100% sure. If you have any ideas, feel free to let me know. And if you have any other suggestions of maybe figuring out how to find out who this is, I'd love to know. Now, the name. This is a proper mystery, and honestly, I'm a little bit stumped. So if you have any ideas of what this could be, feel free to comment them down below and maybe we can figure out together who this was. In the description, there'll be linked a album with a bunch of high quality pictures of the label itself. So if you want to crack at trying to edit the picture to see if you can get some more information, feel free. Now let's take a look at some of the instances where a pre-war uniform has had a Norwegian flag on them in 1945. Here you can see a captain wearing a 1934 uniform where a flag was sewn on, as you can see right here. And as you can see in the background here, there were a lot of people out in the streets celebrating the victory and the end of the war, 5 years of long occupation. Also, another picture, as you can see here, is yet another captain, which instead of it being sewn onto his uniform itself, you can see it's actually sewn onto his greatcoat, which is, again, shows that it was used in multiple areas. Now, here is a picture that almost gave me a heart attack, but of course it's not a 1914 uniform, but a 1934. But here you can see, again, a lieutenant with a flag sewn on in roughly the same area as where my uniform is sewn to. Also, you can see he has a shooting distinction on the uniform as well, again showing that they did actually wear sort of distinctions on their uniforms. Here is another lieutenant, as you can see. This is again a 1934 uniform, and here you can see this flag has been sewn on a little bit higher, I believe, than the one I have. The other picture was a much more closer location-wise. And here you can see he's receiving flowers. I believe it's from the Home Guard or Resistance. And really, again, a really interesting picture. And here you can also see he has the medal variant of the shooting badge, I believe. Now, these photos show that adding the flag to a uniform, again, wasn't that common, but it happened. And it happened most likely for a logical reason. This could have been used to show nationality. Of course, there was a big roundup of traitors at the time, of course, and maybe this was used to show their allegiance. You also have the German uniform slightly resembling the 1934 uniform, at least in color. Both were a lighter gray color. And of course, that could be a reason. We have seen, I think one of the pictures is from a POW coming back from Germany. That could be a reason. Of course, there are many different reasons for why they did this, and we just probably will never know for certain. Every person could have had their own reason, and this could just be one big coincidence. We never really know. Again, I would love to see if we can find out who my uniform belonged to. Maybe we can figure that out if we can find out the name, and maybe we can even find a picture. Like, as I said, I almost had a heart attack when I saw one of the pictures here. If anyone has their own theories, feel free to comment them down below. I'd love to talk about it. Alright everyone, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions regarding the tunic, or you have any stories you want to share yourself, or if you have a jacket like this, feel free to comment them down below. Also, if you feel like this video deserves it, leave it a like. It really helps YouTube and it actually shows it to more people, which is actually just what I want to do here, is make a community where people can share stuff. Also, if you want to learn more about Nordic arms and history, consider subscribing. Until the next one, take care. Bye-bye.